Hey, all you remote learners out there, how are you today? So, we're really getting into the last week of our unit on socialization and how you learn to participate in our society. So, for this week, you should be completing that Good Wife assignment if you haven't done that one already, where you're kind of looking at gender roles as created by family, friends, mostly the media, as you're looking at those different roles as they're perpetuated through magazines and books and things like that. So you're going to complete that, and you're also going to complete the gender socialization worksheet. Those are the two things that you'll need to get done by tomorrow night. Now, also, if you never did journal number 4 that I had posted earlier, make sure that you get that done as well about gender and things like that, and family myths and how families change over time. So what I'm going to talk to you guys about today is this is going to be a shorter lecture. We're going to talk about the role of peers a little bit and really kind of talk about adolescence and kind of just what it means to be a teen. So remember, we're kind of looking at the life cycle as a whole in this unit. And we started off talking about babies at the very beginning. And we talked about things that a baby needs in terms of material and non-material culture and, how a baby's personality is shaped by nature and nurture. We focused on things that impact children during their elementary years, the different stages of development, thoughts of how your self-concept is created, right, with thoughts of me's view of the me versus I compared to Cooley's looking glass self. And it's kind of led us to adolescence. So today we're going to talk a lot about what is adolescence, what does it mean to be a teenager, what are some of the characteristics of being a teenager. Next time we'll talk a little bit about dating as being one of the major new events during adolescence. And then we'll talk about major adolescent problems. And then, as the life cycle goes, the idea is that, you are, of course, in your own family of orientation, the family that you grew up in, whether you were born into that family or adopted or whatever the situation may be. But eventually, we kind of leave you off after adolescence because eventually you'll create your own family, that family of procreation. And then eventually those kids, grow up and you're on your own as an empty nester. And then it comes to the end of your life. Not to be kind of depressing there, but it's true. So today we're just going to kind of compare. Remember we said that as part of the life cycle and the process of socialization and learning to participate in the group, we've got 4 major agents of socialization. We spent all of last week talking about the family, how they're the most important agent of socialization, how they're your primary group, people that you have these long-term commitments to and contacts. You value their opinion. These people are considered your significant others compared to generalized others. They socialize children, right? Teaching kids the norms, the beliefs, the values of society. We talked about the function of the family in terms of teaching kids about procreation, about abstinence, about values, about beliefs, and there's intended and unintended kind of activities involved. Now, the most significant agent of socialization, though, at this point in your life are your friends. And as you're entering this new phase in your life of adolescence, and really honestly, it's almost come to an end. It really started when you were about 12. It's during this phase of your life that, your self-concept may be changing, your personality is taking further shape, you're questioning society, you're questioning your parents, you're questioning the views of others, you're trying to figure out where you fit into the world. You're kind of looking at your achieved status, right? So, the roles that you were kind of born into perhaps compared to your own goals, your ascribed status, you're facing that, role strain and role confusion as you try to take on different roles or even fulfill the duties of one role. Your peers are so important to you at this point in terms of trying to make sure that you feel like you belong to a group or a clique, and they can really have an impact on who you are in the long run. So peer group is kind of the one that makes you question things outside the box, perhaps do deviant acts, and at the same time conform when it doesn't really make any sense to. And I posted another journal question, which you're going to need to complete this week. That's journal number 5, about how have your friends changed over time. And I really want you to think about, what it was like, compared to middle school, compared to maybe when high school started. So did you end up changing your friend group? What influenced that? Did you end up changing cliques? What kind of social group you're in? Has there been big changes in the high school years? Has your family really been supportive of that? Because those friends have had a big impact on who you are, whether they've been a positive influence on you or perhaps been a negative influence on you. Do you have friends that are like, yeah, let's do your homework. Let's work on it together. Let's be involved in this sport or this club. Let's give back to the community. Let's help others. Or if your friends have convinced you to not do your homework, to go play a video game, to go out and party, to whatever it may be, and to make negative choices, they also have had a huge impact on your development and how you see the world. And so that's why it's so important to really kind of focus on them. And we didn't get through a ton of notes today because in class we spent a long time talking about how, when it comes to high school, some people say that it's the best time of your life. Other people say it's the worst time of your life. I don't think it's either, to be quite honest. High school can be fun, but high school can also be miserable. It really kind of just depends on each individual person's attitude and perspective and what really happens to them. But many people dislike high school because it is often very cliquey, right? There's all these different social groups, and the key thing is, are you part of the in group? Do you feel like you have friends? Do you feel like you're respected? Or are you part of the out group? Do you feel like you're more on the fringes? And we talked a lot today about the different groups that are here at Geneseo. And I really felt old because when I was in high school, we had like a preppy group, which was like kids who were like high achieving, wanted to do well. We had a popular group, which was mostly athletes, maybe some wealthy people, very beautiful people, very popular. And a lot of them were athletes, though, were active in lots of activities. And we had a nerd group, and we had a goth group, and we had like an athletic jock group. And, I'd like to tell you that, groups don't exist, but this is sociology class. It's the study of groups. And literally sociologists will tell you that these different groups exist, especially in a high school kind of setting. That people naturally kind of tend to go with others who they feel have the same values as them, have the same interests as them, are involved in the same activities. And they feel special. They feel welcomed when they're part of the group. They feel like they're an outsider when they're not in the group. Their acceptance to the group becomes very important. And it's how, groups in a sense can have that like cult-like kind of attitude, like we talked about, how people are willing to do anything to feel a part of it and feel like they have the sense of belonging. And obviously that's why it's so important as far as who your friends really are. So we talked a lot about, are your friends, are they those mean girls? Are they the plastics? Things like that today in class. But to try to get back to it here for a little bit, this period of your life is specifically called adolescence. And obviously that's a term that you're very familiar with. It's going to sound very health class-like. Sociologists would define it between ages 12 and 19. Some people say that it should start even earlier than that, like 10 or 11. I think those are more like tweens, in between years. I feel like adolescence, though, is a little bit older. And so I'd go with the 12 to 19. I kind of agree with that statement. It's really the whole age of middle school and high school. And it was not even considered like a separate stage in American history until after the Civil War. And honestly, it's even been more so after World War I that we've kind of looked at it as a different like stage in your life. Prior to the Civil War, it was pretty much you had children and then you had adults. And things really have kind of changed after that. And really, in more recent years, we've seen this idea that adolescence is a specific stage in your life and you're focused on friends, you're focused on fun, you're also focused on like your career and trying to figure out who you are, especially as you then eventually graduate from high school and go off on your own. But all that kind of came about over time because of industrialization and kids going to school and political changes as well. Now, during this age of adolescence, of course, this is considered like a specific life stage, and it's important to note that all cultures obviously don't have adolescence as a life stage. As you were doing your culture project / chapter, you might have realized that it's just something some groups don't have. They just kind of look at you as a kid, and then they give you more responsibilities, and then by the time you're like 14 or 15, you can get married. And so they just don't really have like, you're a teenager, like that doesn't exist. It's very different. There might have been some kind of rite of passage, though, to mark them into adulthood right before they got married at a very young age, but there might not have. Each culture, in terms of their traditions and beliefs and values, could be very different. In America, of course, we feel very strongly about rites of passage, different events in your life to mark special celebrations or milestones as you get older. Some of them may be religious-based, so it may be that, you've achieved a communion or confirmation in your religious beliefs. For example, followers of the Jewish faith, they reach their bar or bat mitzvah to kind of mark them as an adult in the church. Other rites of passage don't have anything to do with religion. They're just strictly age-based. So for example, of course, when you were 16, you got your driver's license. When you're 18, you can vote. You can buy a lottery ticket. When you're 21, you can purchase all sorts of stuff from cigarettes to alcohol to you name it in Illinois now. When you're 25, you can run for Congress to try to become a member of the House of Representatives. At 30, you can run for the Senate. And at 35, if you're a U.S.-born citizen, you can, of course, run for the presidency. So there are these, and I think at 25, you also can rent a car. I don't think you can do it before that age. And so, along the way, there are these different rites of passage which kind of mark you from not just being a child anymore to being an adult. And I'm kind of curious at this point, do your parents have they started to realize that you're moving into the world of an adult? I hope you don't commit a crime, but if you were to commit a crime at this point, as a junior and senior, depending on the severity of the crime and the situation, the police would perhaps count you as an adult and try you as an adult. So even though your parents may not really be recognizing that you're moving into that adult status, you really and truly are. And I think remote learning, honestly, is very adult-like. As you go off, if you choose to go off into college, remote options are a possibility in college. You can take online classes, you can do school from home. Remote and distance learning are hard because you have to really kind of, discipline yourself. And most of you are doing awesome with it. So I think you should pat yourself on the back. And this was actually like a pretty important life skill. So I'm curious. I don't know if your parents see you adults yet or not. I know when I was in high school, my parents did not. They controlled everything along the way. And that, as we said, has a lot to do with parenting style. Are they authoritative, over the top like mine were, or are they more authoritarian in the middle like they should be? But, society, school, the government are starting to recognize that you're that much closer to being a full-fledged adult who can make their own decisions. It's not to say that you won't need your parents or your advice of your friends, but you're getting there. Now, one thing I guess I should have mentioned about rite of passage was that even though in America we have these, moments where we see you as more of an adult, we also still see you as children. And even when you turn 18 and you're able to buy a lottery ticket, you're still in school perhaps, and we still don't see you as like a full-fledged adult. There's not like one ceremony where it's the be-all, end-all of everything. And so many people will still treat you like children, including your parents, even as you graduate from high school, turn 18, go off into school. We don't really have that in America. Now, during adolescence, there's a couple of changes which are going on. For one thing, obviously, there's biological changes, and we don't need to go into puberty and all that. That's like a health class thing. We do see, though, that there's literally studies that have been done that say that teens really do need more sleep, and it's perhaps why you're so desperate to sleep in. It's why some schools, such as in California, have switched schedules so they don't start school till like 9 o'clock. It sounds great in theory, but then you get the problem of, okay, if you start at 9 and then you go to 4, it's harder to get a second, job after school. It's harder to do sports practices and games because we're going later into the day. But there is like a whole, bunch of studies that really say that your brain is going through all of these changes and it really needs sleep, it needs rest, and it's also hard to control your emotions. So there's a lot of sociobiologists out there who really say that nature, is really playing a role in who you are at this point. And others, of course, continue to say, no, it's all about nurture. It's all about how your parents treat you. It's all about how your friends treat you. It's all about what you're exposed to in the media. As you become obsessed with impression management and trying to portray a certain side of yourself and fit in with an in-group, and perhaps even may suffer from cyberbullying and such. You also have this undefined status. Remember we talked about status in terms of, is there a status that you're born with, an ascribed status such as son, daughter? Doesn't matter how you, even if you say they as your preferred pronoun, at one point your parents probably referred to you when you were born as, son, daughter. So you have some kind of ascribed status, and there are, of course, an achieved, status at the same point, different goals. But when you're going through your teen years, sometimes kids just feel so out of place, so confused, so overwhelmed that who they are isn't really clearly defined. Hopefully, as you're in your junior and senior year now, this is becoming clearer. But a lot of this confusion about status and roles really does occur in 7th grade, 8th grade, freshman year, especially as kids struggle with finishing up middle school, perhaps being a big fish in a small pond, perhaps being popular, and then coming to the high school. And they might not know everyone in their classes, and they don't know the building, and there's upperclassmen, and they feel all these pressures about the future, and things are just changing as they're giving more responsibilities, especially as they have increased decision making and increased pressure on them. And that's when they're really truly experiencing, that role strain of, how do I fulfill all these responsibilities as a student, and perhaps even, role confusion, if you're a student as well as being an athlete, how do you get everything done as you're trying to figure out who you are, what's important to you as part of this search for yourself. And we're going to cut it there. I'll talk about dating next time. So, like I said, make sure that you have gone ahead and done your journal number 4, your Good Wife assignment, and your gender socialization worksheet. On Wednesday, I'll be posting the last lecture, and you'll complete an exit slip about it, and you'll be completing another journal. I've already posted a worksheet about the role of peers and the impact on your life that you'll be getting done. And then for Friday, you'll have 10 review questions due, the exit slip, as I said, over the last lecture, and one more journal number 6. I might cut one of the journals if we feel a little overwhelmed this week. So reach out, let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll wrap up talking about the role of peers with dating, big issues facing teens, and just a little bit about school and the media in Wednesday's lecture. Have a great day, guys. We're preparing for that test later this week. I'll put it live on Classmaker starting on Friday. And that's it for now. Later.